Traveling once in a while feels so refreshing. I feel like my heart has become so much lighter. I was on a trip with a friend who had invited me along. My daily routine usually revolved around housework, living the same repetitive days without much change. This trip was a much-needed break. You need breaks like this every now and then, or else you'll feel like you're wasting away. It was good, right? Taking it easy for once. It was amazing, really. Invite me again sometime. That day marked the perfect end to an incredible trip. Chatting with my friend in the car, we reminisced about everything we had experienced. But the joy and warmth of those memories were soon shattered the moment I returned home. When I arrived, I immediately noticed something unusual. None of the lights in the house were on. Normally, at least one room would be lit, but this time, it was completely dark. Could they be asleep? I wondered aloud. But it was only 6 p.m. early evening, even in winter. My daughter, Chloe, and my husband, Ethan, were not the type to turn in so early. What's more, Ethan's car, which was usually parked near the front door, was missing. Judging by the snow piled up around the spot, it seemed like it hadn't been there since morning. Maybe they'd been out all day. But what about Chloe? I said, unlocking the front door and stepping into the house. The inside of the house was freezing. I rushed into the living room to turn on the heater and flip on the lights. That was when I saw curled up on the floor was a figure, completely naked and bald. Ah! I screamed instinctively. Looking closer, I realized it was Chloe. She was clutching my infant grandchild, trembling and crying near one of the chairs in the living room. Wait, is that you, Chloe? What's going on? Why are you like this? Why isn't the heat on? I grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her shivering body. Then I hurried to turn on the central heating and put some water on the stove. Where's Dad? How long have you been like this? I asked. Dad. He left with some strange woman. Before that, he shaved all my hair and stripped me naked. He said I needed to understand what it's like to feel like a child again. What? What does that even mean? I don't know. I was so shocked I couldn't move. I just sat here, frozen. I was so scared. I don't understand why he would do something like this. Just wait right here. Chloe seemed to feel a sense of relief now that I was home, and she broke down into tears, crying uncontrollably. Watching her in that state, I felt a wave of fury and heartbreak. Ethan had done this. I couldn't forgive him. I immediately called his smartphone, and he picked up after just a few rings. Hello, where are you right now? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Me, I'm on a trip with my girlfriend, he said cheerfully. His tone was full of glee, and I could hear the voice of a younger-sounding woman chattering in the background. And what do you want? He added nonchalantly. That voice carried the same tone as always, as if mocking me. It felt sharper, like he had been drinking, his pitch slightly higher than usual, and the irritation in his voice pierced my ears. Fine, I understand. What? I can't hear you, he said. He continued with his infuriating attitude, pushing my patience to its limit. Unable to hold back my anger, I said, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you'll regret it. With those words, I ended the call. Ethan would return home and face hell. My name is Sophia, and I'm 60 years old. I've always had a passion for sewing. After graduating high school, I started working at a garment company. On the day of my third holiday party with the company, a group of people from another company accidentally walked into our reserved room. That's how I met Ethan. Back then, there were no smartphones, and both of us lived alone. We quickly grew close, often calling each other after work and talking for hours. Before long, we started meeting in person. And soon after, discussions about marriage naturally followed. To think that such a random encounter would lead to marriage, I never imagined it. Me neither. It's like a miracle, and I couldn't be happier. After our wedding, we moved in with my mother-in-law, Hannah, and the three of us lived together. Ethan's father had died in the war, and Hannah had raised Ethan, her only child, on her own. Ethan had been kind and gentle during our courtship, but his attitude changed drastically after we got married. He became what you'd call a henpecked husband. At first, I didn't let it bother me much. "Don't you dare go to bed before me, woman," or "Can't you cook something a little better?" he said. "Yes, yes, I understand," I would reply lightly, brushing off his remarks. I figured he was just parroting what he heard from others, so I didn't take it seriously. But one day, something unexpected happened. "Sophia, can you quit your job?" Ethan asked out of the blue. "What? Why all of a sudden?" Startled by his sudden question, I accidentally dropped the pot of soup I had been cooking. "Ah, it's hot. Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine. But what's this about?" "Listen, my coworkers' wives have all started quitting their jobs to become housewives because their husbands make enough to support them. If this keeps up, I'll be left behind. So I think it's time for you to quit your job and become a housewife too." That seemed to be his reasoning. As I cleaned up the spilled soup, I couldn't help but shake my head in disbelief at Ethan's reasoning. Holding the pot lightly, I resisted his demand. "Listen, don't you think it's ridiculous to ask me to quit my job over something like this? I work because I want to, not because I have to. I enjoy what I do, and I'd like to keep doing it. Unlike you, I didn't take this job because of a high salary. Do you understand that?" "What do you mean? You work because you want to. And what's this about me working just for the money? Women shouldn't be chasing dreams or working like men. I make more money than you. So why don't you just listen to what I say?" His attitude in that moment was terrifying. The way he pushed his opinions on me, with an air of dominance, made it clear he was determined to get his way. Was this what they called a henpecked husband? Even as I questioned it, I couldn't withstand the pressure Ethan put on me, and I had no choice but to quit my job. "Are you happy now? Why did I have to give up my job just because of your selfish demands?" Though I was afraid of his behavior that day, resentment simmered within me after giving up the job I loved. Ethan noticed my attitude and, though initially a bit annoyed, seemed to suppress his emotions and spoke to me more gently. "I know you're upset, and I'm sorry, but listen, my salary alone is more than enough to support us. Please don't complain about this anymore. I'll work hard to provide for us." He said this with a resigned expression. Not long after, I discovered I was pregnant. Ethan seemed overjoyed by the news and would smile every day, talking to my growing belly. "Hurry up and come into the world, my dear Adam. Stop giving names before we even know if it's a boy or a girl. Why not? I want a son, that's all. So make sure you give me a strong, healthy boy." Ethan's heart was set on having a boy, but the baby turned out to be a girl. The doctor had already informed us it was a girl, but Ethan refused to believe it until the birth. He insisted on being present at the delivery, determined to see for himself. "It's a healthy baby girl." The moment he saw our daughter, Ethan's face fell in disappointment. He even had the audacity to complain to me, exhausted as I was from giving birth. "Who told you to give me a girl? I told you to give me a boy. Why didn't you make sure it was a boy?" The nurse, unnerved by Ethan's serious tone, timidly but firmly explained the biological realities to him, and the situation calmed down for the moment. However, even after I was discharged from the hospital, he couldn't let it go. He kept criticizing me, unable to accept that we had a daughter. Enough. How dare you talk like that about the child Sophia gave birth to? Accept reality already. You're always complaining about her. And now this. I've had it with you. It's cruel. You call yourself a henpecked husband. You're just being a fool. What's wrong with me? You were just the same, aren't you? Ethan retorted. That's nonsense. He was far more compassionate than you'll ever be. He never made careless, thoughtless comments like you do. My mother-in-law, Hannah, always took my side. Because of her, I was able to continue living at my in-laws' house. Even though Ethan was a terrible henpecked husband, having Hannah as my emotional ally made life bearable. But tragedy struck suddenly. 3 years after our child was born, Hannah was diagnosed with cancer and hospitalized. 2 years later, she passed away peacefully. I never imagined she would leave us so soon, I said. Neither did I. I can't believe Mom is gone, Ethan replied. After her passing, Ethan's behavior began to change. The extreme prejudice he had displayed before gradually faded, and our family started to enjoy a more peaceful life. When Chloe graduated from high school and was preparing to enter college, Ethan suddenly reverted to his old ways with a comment that shocked us. Hey, you don't need to have dreams. Women are meant to serve men, just like you Mom did. A proper woman should be a housewife. Instead of wasting time on college, you should focus on working and saving money so you can become one. Why would you say that? You've been paying for my piano lessons all these years, and I want to pursue my dream of becoming a professional pianist. Why would you try to crush my dream like that? You have no right to decide my life for me. She poured out her anger and disappointment, her voice trembling, before breaking down in tears. How could you say something like that to her? It's bad enough you treated me that way, but saying such things to your own child, what's wrong with you? Because that's how women are meant to be, he insisted. Stop spouting such nonsense. What century are you living in? Apologize to her. Shut up, Ethan said stubbornly. For reasons I couldn't understand, he refused to listen to either Chloe or me, adamantly opposing her going to college. But I overrode his objections and used my own savings to pay for Chloe's tuition. You'll need to figure things out on your own with part-time work from now on, I told her as I sent her off to college. Ethan didn't even come to see her off. Our relationship had become strained, almost severed. But Chloe moved forward, attending college, and eventually meeting a boyfriend there. Not long after, she announced her engagement. Chloe confided in me about her decision to marry, but hesitated to tell Ethan. Still, I felt it was my responsibility to inform him. So, Chloe's getting married, huh? He said with a faint smile. Despite the things he had said when she was born, his disdain for having a daughter, and his stubborn refusal to let her attend college, Ethan still loved Chloe in his own way. I could see that he was happy about her marriage, though I didn't realize at the time that his smile carried a deeper meaning. Oblivious to this, I texted Chloe, "Dad seems fine with your decision to go to college now. Come home and introduce Jack properly." A few days later, Chloe and her fiancé, Jack, visited us. "Nice to meet you. My name is Jack, and I'm marrying Chloe," he said with a polite bow. At first glance, Jack seemed like a fine young man. He had a clean and tidy appearance, a well-structured face, and carried himself with confidence. He was what people today might call handsome. However, contrary to my hopes at the time, a shocking truth was hidden between Ethan and Jack. After the family meeting and their wedding, Chloe and Jack, in a gesture of thoughtfulness, decided to live with us. With her marriage, Chloe gave up on becoming a professional pianist. Since she had obtained a teaching license, she became a music teacher at an elementary school. Ethan, for his part, seemed thrilled to have a son-in-law, even if only by marriage. He started drinking with Jack often and even began supporting Jack's dreams, despite Jack being part of a struggling band. A man should always chase his dreams. Guys like you who keep at it steadily are admirable. Keep it up, I'll cheer you on, Ethan said. Thank you. Hearing that motivates me even more, Jack replied. When drinking with Jack, Ethan's face lit up with joy. It was as though he had been longing for male companionship in a household that had always been full of women. Ethan's happiness was evident, as if his demeanor was entirely transformed. Could it be that Ethan was acting the way he did because he was the only man in the house all these years? I wondered aloud. Maybe, Chloe said, but I still haven't forgiven Dad for what he said back then. We spent many nights like this, watching Ethan and Jack drink together while we shared our own drinks. However, one day, a fight erupted between Ethan and Jack. When are you planning to have kids? Ethan asked. You must be joking. I don't like kids, so I'm absolutely not having any. Raising kids is out of the question for me, Jack replied. What? Are you serious? Does Chloe agree to this? Yes, she does. Don't give me that nonsense. I don't care about your excuses, just hurry up and give me a grandchild. No way. I told you I'm not having kids. Their argument escalated, neither side backing down. But Chloe stepped in, silencing them in an instant. This was something Jack and I agreed on before getting married. It's not for you to decide, Dad. As they had promised, Chloe and Jack didn't have any children. However, when Chloe turned 28, she suddenly made an unexpected announcement. I think I'm pregnant, she told us. What? How? I made sure we used protection. How could this happen? You've got to be kidding me. Get rid of it. I'm not okay with this, Jack said in shock. But, Chloe began, if you decide to have it, then we're getting a divorce. That's what we agreed on when we got married, didn't we? Are you serious, Jack? Ethan demanded. Yes, I am. Do you have a problem with that? If that's the case, then get out of this house right now. I will accept Chloe's child and make sure she has it. If you refuse to be a part of this, then leave. Ethan's words carried an intensity that silenced Jack completely. Overwhelmed by Ethan's determination, Jack packed his things and left the house. A few days later, Jack returned with divorce papers in hand. So you're really going through with the divorce? I said. Of course. Just imagining having a child is unbearable to me. Do you even understand how I feel? No, I don't, I replied coldly. And so the divorce was finalized with surprising ease. But what followed this incident was far worse than anything we had ever imagined. 10 months after the divorce, Chloe returned home with her newborn baby, having successfully given birth. However, Ethan greeted her with a furious glare. Why is it a girl again? Couldn't it have been a boy? He snapped. Are you seriously going to put that kind of pressure on Chloe? When will you stop with this nonsense? I interjected. Shut up. You have no right to butt in. This is Chloe's problem. Damn it. Why does it have to be a girl? Shouting, Ethan punched the wall in front of him and stormed out of the house. Why is Dad so obsessed with having a boy? Chloe asked, her voice trembling. Maybe, I replied. He's always wanted to raise a son who could chase dreams the way he wanted to but couldn't. Dad had dreams. Yes, the same as Jack. He wanted to be a singer but gave up along the way and ended up working a regular job. He told me once. Hearing about Ethan's unexpected past, Chloe seemed to understand. That makes sense. No wonder he was so fond of Jack. For a while, Ethan didn't come back home. I couldn't help but wonder where he was and what he was doing. Just as we began to worry about his safety, Ethan finally returned. "I'm back," he said. "Where have you been? Do you know how worried we've been? And now you just waltz in as if nothing happened," I said, frustrated. "I'm sorry. I needed to cool off and think things through. I get it now, it's not anyone's fault that a girl was born. I needed time to face my feelings and accept it." Well, if that's the case, fine. But something about Ethan's tone didn't sit right with me. His words didn't feel genuine, and I couldn't shake the sense of unease they left behind. A few days later, I was invited by a friend to join a trip. Though I agreed, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about leaving Chloe alone with Ethan. Ever since Ethan returned, the way he looked at us had grown unusually cold, almost chilling. "Chloe, if you ever feel unsafe around Dad, go stay at Grandma's house. Grandpa and Grandma will be happy to have you. And it's better than staying here if you're worried," I advised her before leaving. But tragedy struck while I was away. "Hey, what are you planning to do with that baby? She's just a girl. You could still get rid of her now," Ethan said coldly to Chloe. On the first day after I left, Ethan was quiet, but by the third day, he suddenly changed his attitude and began treating Chloe harshly. "Get rid of her? That's impossible," Chloe protested. "There are children's facilities, aren't there? Just leave her at the doorstep of one of those." Ethan's eyes were disturbingly serious. Frightened by his intense gaze, Chloe tried to escape but was caught by Ethan, who locked her in a room. A few days later, noise erupted in the living room, breaking the eerie silence. Chloe heard a man's voice that wasn't Ethan's, echoing through the house. As she strained to listen, the door to her room suddenly opened. Standing there was Jack. "Long time no see. I'll help you get rid of the kid. Let's go." "What are you talking about? Are you insane?" Chloe cried. "I'm not crazy. You've always known I hate kids. You broke our agreement. Remember, the child isn't just my responsibility, it's ours. Enough with the excuses. Get to the living room now." Jack and Ethan forced Chloe into the living room, tying her hands and feet before seating her in front of the kitchen. They then covered her mouth with tape to silence her. At that moment, Chloe thought she was going to be killed. But what Ethan and Jack did next was beyond anything Chloe could have imagined. "All right, let's get started," Ethan said coldly. He took a pair of scissors and began cutting Chloe's clothes, leaving her completely exposed. While Jack held her down, Ethan shaved off all her body hair, including her eyebrows and her hair. Once he was done, they released her restraints. "How does it feel?" "Like a newborn baby without any hair," Ethan sneered. "Maybe if you looked like this, you'd understand how inconvenient having a baby is. Think about it. Reflect on it, and then go get rid of that kid. What are you even thinking?" Overwhelmed by the physical and emotional assault from two grown men, Chloe felt utterly powerless. The wounds they inflicted ran deep. To her, the two men in front of her looked like demons, unable to resist or fight back. She collapsed into tears on the spot. "That's why I hate women. They think crying solves everything," Ethan scoffed. "Exactly. But honestly, I kind of like weak, helpless women," Jack added mockingly. As they laughed and talked, a young woman's voice came from the front door. "Hey, Ethan, are you done yet? We need to leave soon, or we'll miss our flight," the voice called. The voice belonged to someone younger than Chloe. Hearing it, Ethan's face relaxed, and a disgusting smirk spread across his face as he walked toward the door. "Well, there you have it. Ethan's heading out on a trip with his girlfriend. Jack sneered before leaving the room with a thud. Chloe was left in shock, unable to move. She remained in the living room, crying and holding her baby, frozen in place until I returned from my trip that evening. "Chloe, what happened? Why are you like this? And why didn't you turn on the heater?" When I walked into the living room and saw Chloe huddled on the floor, trembling, I rushed to her side to help. She then told me everything Ethan and Jack had done. "Dad, he left with some woman I've never seen before. Before that, he stripped me and shaved all my hair. He said I needed to understand what it feels like to be a baby." What does that even mean?" "I don't know. After that, I couldn't do anything. I was too shocked to move. It was so cold, but I couldn't leave this room. I was so shocked. I don't understand why they would do something like that." Rage boiled up inside me. I couldn't believe Ethan had done something so horrifying to Chloe. Grabbing my smartphone, I immediately called Ethan to confront him. "Where are you right now?" I demanded. Me? I'm on a trip with my girlfriend." "Why?" he replied casually. Chloe's story was confirmed. Over the phone, I could hear a young woman's voice in the background. She sounded carefree and significantly younger than Chloe. Ethan's voice was cheerful, likely drunk, and filled with laughter. "All right, I understand now," I said, barely containing my fury. What are you talking about? I can't hear you," Ethan said, sounding distracted. Clearly, he wasn't even trying to listen. He was too preoccupied with his new girlfriend and his drunken fun. I was even more enraged by Ethan's dismissive attitude, and gave him my final words. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're going to regret it." Without waiting for his response, I hung up the call, still seething, and pulled Chloe into a tight embrace. "This is unforgivable. I'll fight him. I'll make him pay for this, I promise," I said, holding her firmly. Hearing my determination, Chloe looked me in the eyes and nodded, finding comfort in my words. "I want revenge too. Jack was there with him. They're in this together, and I'll never forgive either of them." That moment sealed our resolve. Chloe and I decided to seek justice and started planning how to punish Ethan and Jack for their actions. "For now, I'm so glad I set this up," I said, taking down the surveillance camera I had installed above the cupboard. "A surveillance camera? When did you put that there?" Chloe asked, surprised. "After Ethan started saying strange things to you. I've been wary of him ever since. With you being on vacation and spending more time alone with Dad, I thought it was better to have something in place just in case." Ever since Ethan had returned from being missing, I had been on high alert. His behavior toward me had been terrible in the past, but his treatment of Chloe had been even worse. "This will be our evidence. Let's take a look at the footage," I said, pulling out my smartphone in front of Chloe. As we watched the recordings, Ethan and Jack's conversation came into clear focus. "Jack, you're great at picking up beautiful women. I'm really looking forward to this trip," Ethan said. "Enjoy yourself. While you're gone, I'll take care of the baby situation. First, though, I need to give Chloe some punishment to set things in motion," Jack replied. The conversation was appalling. The two of them had been plotting to force Chloe to abandon her child willingly. As we continued to watch, the footage revealed that while Ethan had been missing, he had been staying at Jack's apartment. It was there that they had laid out their plans, something they openly discussed in the recording. "This is disgusting. What do they even have against this baby? It's unforgivable," Chloe said, her voice trembling with anger. "Ethan's always had a prejudice against women, and now it's even worse." "It's infuriating," I agreed, my anger only growing. I recalled the part of the recording where Jack had said he would ensure the baby was abandoned while Ethan was away on his trip. Jack might come here, I speculated aloud. As expected, Jack did show up at the house, trying to coerce Chloe into abandoning her baby. "Sophia, it's been a while," Jack greeted me with feigned politeness. "How dare you show your face here after leaving all that evidence behind? I could report you to the police right now," I said coldly. "What are you talking about?" Jack asked, feigning ignorance. "Chloe has told me everything, and I have footage from the surveillance camera that captured everything you and Ethan did to her. You might want to start telling the truth now," I said firmly. I played the damning footage for Jack, who was visibly shaken and at a loss for words. I didn't," he stammered, "even without the camera footage. How dare you come to this house after everything you did to Chloe? What were you thinking?" "I wanted to get back together with Chloe." "Get back together? After doing all that? You think you could?" "I thought if I just forced her into the apartment, maybe I could make it work." "That's kidnapping." "When you shaved my hair and restrained me, do you have any idea how terrified I was? You want to get back together after putting me through that? Are you out of your mind?" As Chloe spoke, she walked over from the hallway, holding her smartphone toward us. "Wait, you didn't record all this, did you?" "I recorded everything. Given you're a criminal, it's only natural to be cautious." "Then what was Ethan planning by going on that trip? And why does he have such a grudge against his grandchild?" "He hated having a daughter. He's been tolerating it since Chloe was born. He always said women are inferior, and he wanted to spend time with men who were more on his level. He said women should just be quiet and obey. That's why he begged me to take a young woman with me on the trip, to look after me while I traveled. He really hated you, Sophia. He said you were a troublesome woman, so that's what he really thought." "In that case, I've made up my mind." I said that, and dragged Jack outside, calling for the men from the neighborhood who had been waiting for us. I handed him a document for a settlement payment. "This is for what you did to Chloe. You probably understand that what you did qualifies as assault. You should count yourself lucky you weren't arrested. You'll have to pay for your crimes." Surrounded by strong men, Jack had no choice but to accept the document and agree to the terms. But I didn't believe for a second Jack would actually pay the settlement. So Chloe contacted Jack's parents and made sure he couldn't escape. That's what Dad meant when he called. I was wondering what he was doing when he moved all the stuff out of the apartment. It seemed he had given up. His shoulders slumped, and he crouched down on the spot, apologizing to both Chloe and me over and over. "I'm so sorry. If I'd just broken up with you more honestly, this wouldn't have happened. I'm really sorry. I'll pay the settlement." With tears in his eyes, Jack got into his car and drove off. Well, that's Jack taken care of. Next is Ethan. What are we going to do? "Let's leave the house for now. Let's go to Grandma's. Is that okay?" I've explained everything to Grandpa and Grandma. They'll welcome us, so let's leave this old house behind and head there right away. I said that and started packing up some of our belongings that day to prepare for the move. "Didn't Ethan say he'll be back in about 3 days?" "Yay, that's right. Then we should take everything with us," I said, loading up the fridge, any food that could be eaten, dishes, cooking utensils, and seasonings, preparing everything. "Are you really going that far?" "Of course. After what he did, I'm not going to forgive him. When he comes back, I'm going to make sure he can't live here at all. He needs to understand." My anger was intense. There was no way I could forgive Ethan's behavior. I was determined to make him suffer, to bring him down to the point where he'd be completely lost and helpless. After the move was completed and we arrived at my parents' home, Mom and Dad saw Chloe and burst into tears, hugging her tightly. "You've been through so much. From now on, you'll be safe. You can live here without worry." I can't forgive Ethan either. I'd like to do something to punish him myself, but if Sophia is going to handle it, I'll just watch over her. "If you need anything, you can count on me." The warm response from my parents put both Chloe and me at ease. No matter what happened with Ethan, I figured he'd probably reach out to me in a couple of days. That was the thought I had while we spent time there. "Hey, are you alive?" "Huh? Why are you calling all of a sudden?" "My house is collapsing. It looks like it was crushed by the weight of the snow." "Where are you guys?" It was an unexpected turn of events. After we left, I had seen on the news that a record-breaking heavy snowfall had lasted for 3 days. I remembered hearing the creaking sounds of the house several times when we lived there. Though I had some anxiety, I never imagined that it would actually happen. Most likely, a few days after we left, the snow's weight caused the house to collapse. The house had been old for a long time, so it wasn't surprising that it could collapse. "Did you just get back?" "Yay, but the house." "I see. That's unfortunate." Unfortunate? What are you talking about? Where are you now?" "Parents' home." "I see. All right, I'm coming over now." "No, don't ever show your face to me again." "What do you mean? Why are you suddenly saying that? You haven't forgotten what you did to Chloe, right? And you even proudly told me you were traveling with your girlfriend." "It's over. We're getting a divorce." "Divorce? If we divorce, I won't have anywhere to live. Anyway, let me stay there." "Don't joke with me. I've heard everything you were planning from Jack. I've got all the evidence of what you did. I've got it all recorded. I've filed for a settlement, and I'm making sure you pay for it. I'm getting the divorce, too, so get ready for that." "Wait." I ended the call. I didn't want to talk anymore at that moment. Later, I drove to a park near the house where Ethan said he would be, bringing the divorce papers, compensation request, and settlement documents. There, I found Ethan wrapped in a blanket, sleeping inside his car. "Here are the divorce papers and the documents for the compensation and settlement. You better pay up. The house is destroyed, and I've already reduced the amount as a mercy. Be grateful for that." "Is it really a divorce?" "Of course. What you did is a crime. You need to make amends. The house collapsing is just your own doing. I can't feel sorry for you. Goodbye." It seemed that Ethan was deeply shocked by losing his house, as he could only speak weakly. He mentioned that he had consulted with the insurance company but had found out that there were out-of-pocket expenses, which left him with no options. It seemed like he was planning to sell the land he currently owned to pay for an apartment contract. "I've lost everything. I've always had prejudices, but I realize now that I shouldn't have done those things. I'm sorry. I guess I've been punished." Ethan said this, signed the divorce papers, and handed them over to me. "I'll live modestly from now on. I'm sorry." With that, he wrapped himself back up in the blanket in the car, his voice weak and on the verge of death. However, no matter how he sounded, I couldn't feel any sympathy. Live strong. If you really want to make amends, live your life with everything you've got. Make sure you pay the compensation and settlement for the divorce. Goodbye. I said this through the car door and left the scene. From then on, Chloe and I continued living at my parents' home, and Chloe's hair began to grow back to a short length. The grandchild grew as well, and my parents smiled every day, watching the child's progress. As for Ethan, he managed to secure an apartment, but when he moved in, he realized that he wouldn't be able to live with the current situation. He contacted me, saying that he was working part-time in traffic management, working day and night. I'm glad he seems okay. He really looked like he was going to die back then. I honestly thought he might just die like that, but I guess not. You're still worried about him. Well, of course. If he died, I wouldn't get any money. That's your reason. I know it sounds bad, but that's the truth. And how about you? I'm getting paid properly. Jack's dad still contacts me sometimes, but he seems to have quit the band and is working seriously now. Where is he working? I heard it's part-time work on road construction. Well, at least they're both trying hard. We now found it fun to talk about each other's progress, and mentally, we had both settled down. We had finally returned to a peaceful everyday life. The grandchild grew quickly, and before long, they started walking and speaking words like grandma and mom. That peaceful daily life was the greatest happiness now. Chloe's hair continued to grow longer with each passing day. About a year after that incident, Chloe's maternity leave ended, and her hair had fully grown back to its original length. All right, today's lesson will begin. Chloe returned to her original job as a music teacher at an elementary school, and she was able to live her life just as she had before. If she's afraid of marriage, then it's fine not to get married just yet. At 29, she still has time to have great experiences and find a wonderful boyfriend. That's what I wish for her. I hope today is a happy day for us all.
My fault? I barely managed to speak, merely echoing mother-in-law Aria's words. That's exactly what I mean. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened. I do not acknowledge you as Noel's wife. You're not suitable. That's what I mean. Why? Why all of a sudden? Why say such things? It's a problem that you've lived this long without understanding such things. Realize it. It's true what they say, children from low-level single-parent homes often have issues. Seeing you has only reinforced that belief. My name is Sierra. I'm a 35-year-old office worker, living with my husband and elementary school-aged child, a family of 3. Since the beginning of my marriage, we've lived close to my husband Noel's family home. We maintained a good relationship while keeping a comfortable distance. The turning point in our relationship with father-in-law and Aria came a few years ago. They always cared for us, and we were grateful, but father-in-law passed away after a long illness. Aria's grief at losing father-in-law was painfully evident to me. At that time, considering Noel's commute, we planned to move, but seeing Aria's condition made leaving her alone worrisome. Noel and I discussed it many times. We decided to stay put until Aria's situation stabilized. That's when it started. Slowly but surely, Aria began to overstep our personal space. When father-in-law was alive, Aria never visited our home unnecessarily. She never came unannounced, not as far as I knew. But now, she suddenly started showing up without any notice. It began as a day or two, but recently she's at our house half the week. If only she gave prior notice, I could bear it, but entertaining Aria when she's so unpleasant is disheartening. Especially since she only brings unpleasant conversations. Sierra, you're always home late, aren't you? Are you that busy with work? Are you taking proper care of Noel? What exactly do you mean by proper care? Just what I said. Are you serving nutritious meals and looking after his health? Noel is the pillar of our family, my precious son. Sierra, you're not just serving him frozen meals and hot deli food because you're short on time, are you? She glanced at the freezer. Her demeanor suggested she might just open it. Well, not always, but sometimes, yes. Noel tells me not to overdo it, too. Really? But just because you discussed it with Noelle doesn't mean you can neglect proper meals. It's just laziness. You should be able to manage that, considering Noelle's health. What are your thoughts on this? Every time I tried to speak, Arya's tone grew harsher. I'm sorry, Arya. I try, but it's hard to find the time. That's just laziness. I've worked for many years. I understand the difficulties of working women. But despite that, I've overcome and provided healthy meals and maintained our household for my husband and Noelle. From my experience, not having time is just an excuse. Stop making excuses, Sierra. Show some responsibility as a homemaker in charge of your family's health. I can't rest easy otherwise. Arya, a longtime middle school teacher, always judges everything by her standards, without considering others. Since a minor incident in middle school due to my family background, I've had a poor impression of teachers. That includes Arya, a former teacher. I understand Arya cares about our family in her way. That's why I can't say anything and just listen, enduring her lectures. But maybe my attitude seemed unreliable as Arya's behavior gradually changed. Before, she used to come unannounced to lecture or make snide remarks, but lately, she started bringing homemade meals. And always in such large quantities that our family couldn't finish in one go. Mostly Noelle's favorites. At first, I thanked her for her efforts. Encouraged by this, Arya began bringing food daily. Sierra, I understand you're busy, but can't you come home earlier? The meals I prepare get cold because I can't get them inside. I want Noelle to eat them while they're hot. I'm sorry, I do want to come home early, but it's just a busy period at work right now. But you say that, yet isn't it just that you're not good at your job? I heard on TV recently that people who are good at their jobs manage to leave on time. On the contrary, those who aren't good stay late and work overtime. It's like they were talking about you, Sierra. Aren't you, in fact, not good at your job? Arya always had a mean look on her face when she said such things. No, that's not it. I think I do my job well enough. Displeased with my attitude, Arya's face clearly showed her annoyance. I'm only making and bringing these meals because you always serve hot deli food. Don't you understand that if you come home late because of work, it's all for nothing? Don't you feel even a bit sorry for receiving all these meals I've made? She spoke as if expecting gratitude was a given. I never asked her to cook for us. Neither did Noelle, of course. I thanked her and accepted the meals, but it was all Arya imposing her goodwill. To me, it was a nuisance, albeit one I was grateful for. Then, one day, Arya said something that pushed me to my limit. Sierra, I've been thinking. You're never home when I visit, right? So, to avoid wasting these meals, I think it's better if I also have a key to your house. That way, I can drop off the food anytime. Plus, with things being unsafe these days, I can quickly come over if something happens. Just ask Noelle to give me a spare key, okay? Hearing this, I realized I couldn't handle it alone anymore. I consulted Noelle about Arya. Noelle, I need to talk to you about your mom. I can't handle this by myself anymore. Mom's issue? What happened? Arya visits our house daily, always without any notice. I do my best to accommodate her when I can, but I can't always be available. I have my own schedule too. Yeah, I get it. And now she wants a spare key to our house. It's hard enough as it is, but if she can enter when we're not home, that's unbearable. If we give her one, she might start coming over all the time. Just the thought is frightening. I'm sorry to speak this way about your mom. Seriously? Mom said that? I don't like the idea of her coming in with a spare key either. Okay, I understand. It might be hard for you to say, so I'll talk to her clearly about it. Noelle was sympathetic to my concerns and promised to talk to Arya. I hope this makes things better. Relieved, I was glad I talked to Noelle. The next day, while I was at work, Arya called. Sierra? What time will you be home today? What do you mean? Well, I made too much beef stew, Noelle's favorite. I thought I'd bring it over. So, what time will you be home? I see. In that case, I should be home a little after 7 o'clock, so I'll definitely be there by 7:30. All right. I'll come around then. Thanks. It might have been the first time Arya called before visiting. Noelle must have talked to her already. I was impressed by how quickly things changed. But honestly, I didn't just want a call before visits, I wanted her to stop visiting altogether. That was my true wish, but for now, I was genuinely happy she called in advance. Arya's visit frequency didn't change, but she started calling beforehand. That alone significantly reduced my stress. However, after a while, I noticed something odd. I started running into Arya more often when I was out. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Like when our family went shopping on the weekend, or when I went to buy toys with my child, or even bumped into her at the station on a weekday evening. Meeting her this frequently seemed too much for coincidence. But strangely, nothing more happened. We'd bump into each other, exchange greetings, explain what we were doing, and that was it. It never led to anything else. Maybe that's why, before I knew it, I had become accustomed to this situation. On one holiday, while this was going on, we decided to clean the house before the delivery of a sofa set Noelle had wanted for a while. We planned to place it in the living room, so that was our primary focus for cleaning. But before we knew it, both Noelle and I got carried away and started cleaning the kitchen and bedroom too. It was a completely accidental discovery. In a corner of the bedroom, there was an inconspicuous outlet that seemed unlikely to ever be used. Only a double outlet adapter was plugged in there. I didn't remember buying it, nor placing it there. Noelle didn't recall it either. Both of us felt something was off. Without saying a word to each other, we started checking all the outlets in the house. We found one mysterious outlet adapter each in the kitchen and living room, and another in the bedroom, making 3 in total. By then, we had a feeling about what it might be. But we were too scared to put it into words. It's like those things you see on TV sometimes, isn't it? Who would do this, and why? Where's the banking card? In the middle of my sentence, Noelle suddenly asked about the banking card. What? I was confused, not understanding what Noelle meant. Noelle, noticing my confusion, asked slowly and clearly. Is our banking card here? Has it gone missing? Noelle, too, seemed to have his own thoughts on the matter and quickly checked. After confirming the banking card was safe, Noelle put his finger to his lips and quietly moved us to the living room. We might be bugged, so it's better not to talk about it there. We should be safe here, it's far enough. He said this to reassure me. Should we call the police in this situation? As I was about to call the police in a panic, Noelle stopped me. It's good to report to the police, but let's wait. Reporting without knowing who did it might just waste time. I have an idea. We can report it after that. He then shared his plan with me. Honestly, upon hearing it, I wanted to report it immediately. But Noelle seemed to have a hunch. That night, we put the double outlet back in its original place. Wrapped in newspaper, with a fan blowing on it continuously. At 2 a.m., the front door quietly opened. A figure quietly entered and headed straight to the living room. Entering the living room, the figure picked up the double outlet, inspecting it closely. We captured all these actions on camera, and without any warning, turned on the living room lights. The figure panicked at the sudden light. I was momentarily stunned upon seeing the person, but it also felt expected. It was Arya.
So, it was you. We need an explanation, Mom.
Noelle spoke calmly, but there was an underlying anger. But Arya turned her anger towards me instead.
Sierra, what is this all about?
Even in this situation, she seemed not to understand her position.
I just came to check on something, and now even Noelle is looking at me like that. What's going on? Don't play dumb. What were you checking by sneaking into our house in the middle of the night?
What does it matter? More importantly, why are you two so angry with me?
You still don't get it? This was all my husband's idea. We're the ones asking for an explanation, not you, Arya. If you have something to say, answer our questions first. Sierra's right. If you're going to play dumb, we'll call the police. Understand?
Noelle spoke coldly, and Arya's attitude shifted as if she realized there was no other way.
Reporting to the police? That's an overreaction. We're family, there's no need for such formalities. This is all a misunderstanding. So, let's not make a big deal out of it. A misunderstanding, you say? Then you'd better explain yourself clearly to clear it up, unless we are not convinced. Still claiming it's a misunderstanding at this point? There must be a good reason for it, right, Mom?
Well, it's just, loneliness. I was lonely, so I did it.
Lonely? So you were bugging us? And you expect us to accept that?
All this time, Arya's unannounced visits and frequent encounters when we were out were because she had been eavesdropping and monitoring our movements. Unaware of this, I struggled with the invasion of my personal space by Arya and even blamed myself, thinking I had a problem for not being able to handle it well. I had pushed myself almost to my limit. But it was all because Arya had been eavesdropping. I felt a mix of relief that it wasn't my fault and anger towards Arya's actions, which made my tone and attitude towards her naturally harsher.
Do you really think that reason is enough for us to be satisfied? What you're doing, Arya, is absolutely inexcusable. Don't you understand that? Sierra's right, Mom. We can't accept that reason, and we can't forgive what you've been doing. I hate to say it, but what you're doing is wrong. If things continue like this, we can't have a relationship like before.
Wait, Noelle. I'm your parent. How can you say such terrible things to your own mother? You weren't like this before, were you? Arya's face was like that of a forlorn stray cat seeking pity from a passersby. But Noelle was even colder and more distant.
Who's causing this, Mom? You won't admit your own actions, and your reasons are selfish. It's obviously wrong. Enough is enough. We're leaving here. Of course, we won't tell you where we're moving.
Noelle, why?
Arya, please stop. You've betrayed your own son. Don't you understand how he feels?
It seemed the words from her son, Noelle, deeply shocked Arya. She was visibly shaken and flustered. All I wanted was to hear an apology from Arya, for her to admit her wrongdoing and then discuss what to do next. But as soon as I spoke to Arya, she glared at me with intense hostility.
Quiet. You've been saying whatever you want. It's all because of you that I did this. If you hadn't been here, I wouldn't have had to do any of this. If only you hadn't married Noel.
I couldn't comprehend the sudden outburst from Arya. My fault?
My fault?
I managed to speak, only echoing Arya's words.
That's exactly what I mean. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened. I do not acknowledge you as Noel's wife. You're not suitable. That's what I mean. Why? Why say such things so suddenly? It's a problem that you've lived this long without understanding such things. Realize it. It's true what they say, children from low-level single-parent homes often have issues. Seeing you has only reinforced that belief.
Noel, finally catching up to the situation, hurriedly tried to stop Arya.
Mom, what are you saying all of a sudden? Do you realize what you're saying?
Yes, I understand perfectly.
I thought you would feel constrained by marrying a woman from such a low-level family. That's why I was monitoring, to prevent any problems. It's all for your sake, Noel.
We were baffled by Arya's sudden confession. Especially Noel, who seemed to be seeing this side of his mother for the first time. He was unsure how to react. My confusion was different from Noel's. I was perplexed by the words Arya had spoken to me. I had heard those words before. Why had Arya spoken them? That was my confusion. Eventually, I remembered something and asked Arya. Arya, I heard you were a middle school teacher. Is that true? My question, seemingly unrelated to the situation, caused an exaggerated reaction in Arya. And from her reaction, something clicked for me.
If you are a middle school teacher, you must know many other teachers, right? There's a teacher I can't forget. Is she perhaps an acquaintance of yours?
I mentioned a name. Upon hearing it, Arya became visibly shaken and stuttered. Why that name? I thought so. It's connected. Seeing Arya's reaction, I was certain my suspicions were correct. The name I had mentioned was that of my middle school homeroom teacher.
I mentioned my middle school homeroom teacher. From your reaction, Arya, it seems you know her. Actually, I was treated terribly by that teacher and got into some trouble. It seems like you've heard about it, haven't you?
The trouble with my former teacher was related to my family background. My parents divorced when I was in elementary school. I was taken in by my mom. I was told by my mom that the divorce was due to a personality clash, not because they hated each other. In fact, even after the divorce, my father and I kept in touch regularly. We even had family dinners together several times. Both my parents worked, but they had different life rhythms. There were many mismatches, so they decided it was better to live separately for both of their sakes. Even though they were divorced, I didn't really feel like they were. However, my former homeroom teacher didn't see it that way. She labeled me as a problem child because I came from a single-parent family.
Children from low-level single-parent homes are often problematic.
I was told that directly. No matter how much I tried to explain, she wouldn't listen. To make things worse, she had a troublesome way of managing the class. She believed in uniting the class by targeting one student. By making one student the scapegoat, the rest of the class would come together. She believed in this method, and I became the target. The reason was simple. I was raised in a single-parent family. Perhaps she thought it was okay to do anything to a problematic child like me. Of course, I couldn't accept such reasoning and resisted desperately. Because one of the reasons was my parents' divorce, I couldn't tell them about the treatment I received from the teacher. Resisting as a middle schooler wasn't easy. When I was cornered beyond my capacity, I finally opened up to my parents. I told them how the teacher was treating me. Fortunately, my parents acted quickly upon hearing my story. There was an immediate discussion with my parents and the teacher, and the issue was resolved. The teacher resigned as the class homeroom teacher and left the school unexpectedly in the middle of the year. The issue was resolved quickly after I confided in my parents, but I still remember it vividly. It was that significant of an event. That's why I reacted to Aria's words. If she was acquainted with such a former teacher, I could easily imagine what she had been told about me. But that didn't make me feel any sympathy for Aria. I understood too well what she thought of me now.
It seems, Arya, you didn't hear the whole story from your acquaintance. If you had, you wouldn't have done such a thing. The whole story? What are you talking about? Yes, I was raised in a single-parent home with my mom. But you might not know that I was frequently in contact with my father. Indeed, my parents divorced due to personality differences, but there was another reason: their work. And, by the way, my father is a lawyer. Maybe I'm telling you for the first time, but I am a lawyer's daughter. Knowing that someone related to legal expertise is involved, you can understand what your actions mean, right?
What?
No, that's a lie. Who would believe that? My former teacher reacted the same way when I told her. You two are quite similar. I didn't hear anything. I haven't heard such a story, no. Of course, no one shares inconvenient truths with others. It's natural. Aria's attitude changed completely from her earlier confidence. No one could imagine being bugged by someone whose relative is a lawyer. It's obvious how dangerous that would be for oneself. If I tell my father about what you did, you understand what might happen, right? It could become a bigger issue than you think. Stop! Please don't say that. Please, I beg you, don't tell anyone about this. Please, I beg you. If that's the case, then answer our questions, okay? Yes, I'll answer. Please, I beg of you. So, you heard everything about me from that acquaintance? Yes, that's right. When I mentioned your name, they seemed to know and then. And they started telling you about it? Yes. I thought if I found a weakness, I could somehow get Noelle to divorce you. I see. That's clear now. I thought this was probably her true intention. From Aria's demeanor, it didn't seem like she had anything else to hide. At the same time, I was somewhat shocked to know she thought this way about me. Mom, I have no intention of leaving Sierra, just so you know. Noelle said to Aria in a firm tone. I don't understand what you dislike about Sierra or why you did this, and I don't want to know, but Sierra is an important wife and family member to me. Unfortunately, I think it's better if we don't meet anymore to protect my family. That's it. Yes. Aria could barely respond to Noelle's clear declaration of cutting ties. Understandably overwhelmed by his decision. The next day, at Noelle's insistence, we reported the eavesdropping to my father and the police. We also sent a warning to the former teacher through my father. Surprisingly, the former teacher had no knowledge of Aria's actions. However, given that the teacher's remarks had led to this situation, we strongly demanded she never speak of it again. I can imagine how formidable my father must have been in his anger, but she must have been frightened enough of him. We even received a written pledge that she would never involve herself with us again. After ensuring all these matters were resolved, our family moved. We chose a location near Noelle's workplace, but didn't inform Aria at all. As a precaution, we blocked Aria's contact information. Not just me, but Noelle did the same. I heard from neighbors near the in-laws' house that Aria, who had been a long-time educator, had a good reputation. Still, her deeds became widely known when the police got involved. Rumors sparked more rumors, and Aria began to be viewed coldly by everyone in the neighborhood,
eventually being left alone. Now, Arya is said to be living alone in her house, with no one visiting her, almost unrecognizable from her former self. Even after hearing about Arya's current situation, I had no intention of forgiving her. In my mind, I've resolved to act as if Arya never existed from the start. Now that I have no ties with Arya, I plan to cherish my family even more.